Gabrielle Martorana, welcome to the Workplay Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to just go into all things like how you help entrepreneurs or really anyone who's creating visual marketing campaigns move past creative blocks, tap into their creative side, and you do it in a very cool and specific way, intangible way, which I really love. And we'll get into all of that. But first, what is your business and how did you get into all of this line of work?
Yes, so my business is twofold. I have a school called the School of Expansion, where I teach spiritual entrepreneurs how to expand and use ancient tools like what we're going to talk about today for creativity and productivity. And I basically blend the lines between spiritual and science and kind of ancient wisdom and business. And then I also have another company called Cacao Wisdom, where I import this secret cacao that we'll be talking about today to the United States.
Mhm.
And I got into this work because I myself have been an entrepreneur for the last almost 8 years. I used to work in corporate. I was the marketing manager for 4 offices in Southern California for a big corporate events company, and I did their in house marketing. And eventually I got the itch to travel. So I decided to start my own marketing agency and transition that client into, or that company into one of my clients. And from there, I grew my marketing agency. I was doing the boss babe thing. I was growing my agency, working a lot in creative marketing and other facets of marketing. And that's when I came into or was exposed to all of these other traditions of these other cultures around the world. I started going deeper into my own personal development journey and my own healing journey. And I realized that my business was actually very connected to my self image and my connection with self and, yeah, my healing journey in general. And so when I started to dive deeper into that practice, I saw my business flourish. And that is how I came across Mama Cacao, who actually helped me through some of the hardest years of my life where I was moving through just healing a lot of stuff from my childhood, and things were affecting my day-to-day life that I didn't realize was all connected. So that's how I came to be where I am today, where I now teach this.
You're so smart in the marketing business world, but then you also have this other side of you. And I feel like in the spiritual world, sometimes you don't get both, right? It's either one so far on one side, so far on the other side. I'm interested to know what that transition looked like for specifically you, because there's a lot of people who are kind of like, oh, I don't know, but they know that like it could help them, but they're a little scared maybe, or it's just maybe a little outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah, it started with baby steps. It started with maybe doing some meditations and getting a random idea and then implementing that idea and it just being so easy and so fluid and just all falling into place and kind of working a lot easier than maybe an idea that I saw from somebody else and fell out of an energy of competition and then tried to implement it because I was afraid if I didn't do it, then I wasn't going to get it. And then I just met wall after wall after wall. So it was kind of like small things like that where I was just dipping my toe in and trialing it out, maybe sitting with Mama Cacao and we'll dive into this further, but using that to help with my creativity and then seeing like all this huge flood of ideas come through when I had writer's block or creative block, or where like a lot of the marketing materials I was creating were just kind of bland and falling short and not really hitting home with my ideal client or the audience or niche I was trying to reach. So it kind of started incrementally like that. And as I began to trust myself and then trust this process, it just naturally expanded on its own.
Why this is so important to hear is because I just feel like, and you could tell me if this is the same for you. I just feel like there's a lot of, hey, I have to do this because this person's doing it, or because the trend is this. People lose sight of the fact that like people get big on the internet in their businesses because they create something that no one has ever done before, or it's something that someone hasn't seen before. How do
Mhm.
you balance the constant influx of, hey, this person's doing this, and I need to stay in my zone while you're still reading the room, right? Like, how do you balance that? How do you still stay in touch with everything while, still being your own self?
Yes, that's such a good question. I find that I have to be really, really conscious of if I'm having too much input and not enough output. Something that I've learned from a lot of indigenous cultures that I studied with is this concept of like reciprocity or yin and yang, and it's the balance of the in with the out. And I noticed that, like you said, when I'm scrolling on Instagram and I'm just getting inundated with all these things, all these trends, all these things people are doing, and feeling like, oh, I need to do that too, my creativity really is stifled. But when I sit with myself, I'm alone, I go out into nature, I allow myself to relax. That's the biggest thing, is when my nervous system is in a heightened state, then I have a much harder time tapping into pure creativity. But when I'm in a relaxed state, I'm able to drop into the flow. And that's when the weird random ideas come. And then you create that one off reel, and it really connects with somebody because it came from this place of pure sharing, of inspiration, of connection, versus a place of, I have to do this. I just need to get this out and check it off my to do list. And I have seen personally and with a lot of my peers, when we come from that place of creativity and of flow and of ease and of allowing ourselves to be ourselves, to express ourselves in whatever kind of weird, quirky way that comes out as, those are the ones that set fire to your path. I'm not saying necessarily go viral because that's not always the goal, but really connect with the person that you're trying to connect with on whatever level. But that's a constant thing that I'm thinking of, is inflow and outflow, and if that's in balance.
I love that because that's so tangible. You can really track how much you're consuming versus how much you're actually creating. You had mentioned heightened nervous system and just being in that phase. I think that, especially if you live in a big city, I'm used to living in Miami. It's like constant go, go, go. Those of us that maybe we don't even know that our nervous system is heightened or
Mhm.
just overreacting or whatever it is, what are
Mhm.
some signs of this that maybe we could look out for that might just be normalized right now?
Mhm. It's that chronic sensation in the body. Coffee has a lot to do with this too. That feeling of like feeling like you need to be caffeinated because you need that edge to like be able to perform. You like need that like feeling like in your body to just crank out all the stuff that you need to do that day. That a connection with that feeling, I think, is cultural, even like beyond just being in a big city. I think it has to do with us living in like Western society, but recognizing that has a purpose. That's that divine masculine energy, the linear path of like goal oriented. This is the route that I'm going on, these are the things I need to do. A way to balance that would be to drop back into the divine feminine, and cacao actually helps with this so much, and move into a more like flowy, creative, calm, receptive energy. Another kind of symptom or experience might be if anyone's having trouble sleeping, or if they're having a low libido, or feeling numb or disconnected from their bodies. All those are signs that you're really, really heavily in your masculine energy and kind of disconnected from the body, the present moment, creativity, the feminine, all these pieces. And I don't say feminine or masculine having anything to do with gender. I think yin and yang maybe are better words, because we all have these energies and these pieces of us. So, like when you're in Miami, for example, there's a lot of yang energy, which is like the fiery, like fast paced energy, kind of like New York City. Like you said, in big metropolitan areas, there's all this, what are we doing? Where are we going? What are we creating? Like this movement. And it's beautiful to tap into, but we can get out of balance. And so that's like when you say you go on vacation or you go into nature, which is more of the yin energy, you can literally feel it, which is wild. But we get so used to being in one or the other. And of course, balance is where we probably are most optimized in our creation.
So interesting, and it's so true. What are some of these ancient practices and wisdoms that you have learned and tapped into over the years through this journey that you've been on?
One of the biggest ones is working with ceremonial cacao, with sacred cacao. I first came across cacao when I was in Bali, Indonesia, and studied with a woman there, and then actually moved to Guatemala and studied with a Mayan shaman because I was just madly in love with cacao. And what I have learned is that actually that kind of yin and yang energy we're just talking about is that the cousin of cacao is coffee. And so coffee, America is fueled by coffee. Coffee is very good for helping us tap into that very like linear driven goal setting energy. So whenever you're working on spreadsheets or numbers or budgets or like task organization, coffee is such a good tool, and you can drink it in a ritualistic way as well, like an intentional way, knowing this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to drink this coffee to help support me in that process. Or cacao on the other side, cacao is helps you ground into your body. It helps you move out of so much of your head back into your body. There's a lot of wisdom in our body, in our heart space, us as women in our wombs. And when you drink cacao, you're helping yourself tap into your right brain. So into creativity, into flow, into people call it intuition or ideas or out of the box thinking or whatever word resonates with you, but just the creation process. And so I use those rituals of intentionally choosing coffee or cacao and then sitting with, like for this morning, for example, I sat with Mama Cacao outside. I decided what my intention was for today. I also do a gratitude journal and some self image work where us as business owners, every time that we are hitting a new edge in our business, we're basically transforming. The version of you who first started your business and was just like a hustling boss babe is very different than the version of you who was in a more established CEO and so on and so forth. And every time we change these versions of us, we're meeting an edge. And cacao is really helpful in that process because she holds you. She's like a hug, like a mama bear type of energy. And so I use those practices in the morning when I'm working on my self image of who am I becoming? What is this next version of me? And how does that support my business and my expansion process? So those are two rituals that I work with very deeply.
Oh, I love that because I love how you're like, okay, coffee can be ritualistic, like you
Mhm.
said. And I've
Mhm.
never heard it explained in that way, where it's like, okay, if you're doing this task, coffee might be better. And this actually reigns so true because I feel like when I am trying to get into a creative space, and I'm like, okay, today we're going to brainstorm. Like, I feel like brainstorming is so creative, whether it's brainstorming marketing, brainstorming even numbers. Like, you can brainstorm numbers. Like, you can be very like, oh, like, where should we be hitting? Like, I feel like that's more of a brainstorm. It's interesting that you say coffee is more like, okay, let's go into, spreadsheets, like task work, because whenever I drink coffee and I'm going into more task work, I'm like, I'm moving. But whenever I try to use coffee to like get me up there with a brainstorm, it's almost draining. I
Mhm.
actually don't want to be in that space. It kind of makes me crash a little bit. I don't know if you've experienced that.
Yes, definitely.
So that's so interesting. I want to go into marketing because I want to kind of understand the difference with coffee and cacao when it comes to generating revenue and what some of the tasks actually tangibly are. Like,
Mhm.
what tasks in marketing is cacao? What
Mhm.
tasks in marketing should you be using maybe coffee as a ritual in the morning?
So for cacao, like basically anytime that I am working with Canva or any sort of graphic creation, I'm definitely working with Mama Cacao. Anything visual, creative, colors, design, dynamic like this, even also when I'm scripting, because that's very creative. So if you're scripting for video, scripting for content, also in the process of filming content, I feel like those are very creative, kind of right brain activities. On the flip side, if I'm doing things more creating the schedule for posting or yeah, like budget type stuff or organization or more like tactical strategies in the sense of this comes before this and then this has to happen, project management style, that I use coffee because that is more like structured and creating like a baseline. And then the cacao is more the flowy, more like whimsical. Even numbers, like you said, like pie in the sky. What do I want to reach? What am I thinking I want to call in this year? It's more manifesting type energy. Then I would use cacao.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is a really good baseline because I feel like in the workplay method, we have different phases. So we have the planning phase, which is where we're dreaming up the vision. And sometimes when workplay members are going through, because we do up to 4 shoots in the year on a quarterly basis, you might get to Q3 of your content quarters and be like, what am I doing? Like, I've done like this and I've done this. So when someone is in the plan phase of the workplay process, I'm assuming, I just based off of what you said, we would use Cacao in that phase. Like we would want to go into the content plan review with the workplay team, sit down with our Cacao and be in that phase, even before that, as we're preparing. So walk me through what I would think about, how I would do this. Like, how is cacao even made? I don't even know. If you could just walk us through, like, from start to finish, is it a morning thing? Is it nighttime thing? What does that look like?
Yes, so a little bit of backstory on cacao. Cacao originally comes from Central and South America, and it's been used by our ancestors for thousands of years in ritualistic practices, for energy, for trade. It was used as offerings. So it's been a very prized, highly valued gift from the earth for a long time. So now when you're working with cacao, you want to make sure that you just source a ceremonial grade of cacao because that won't have like herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, all the things that you don't want to be putting in your body. Because cacao is actually really, really, really good for you. So you can feel amazing putting cacao into your body. So I just want to start there. So when you're now preparing your sacred cacao or your ceremonial grade cacao, it's really simple. There's actually two different strains of cacao that I recommend working with depending on the time of day. If you want to sit with cacao in the morning, I would recommend using a cacao from Guatemala or the Dominican Republic or Mexico. These cacaos are more fiery and they have more of a energy enhancing feel to them. It's not caffeine, it's actually like a cousin to caffeine, so your body processes it differently. You don't get that peak and trough the way you do with the caffeine that's found in coffee. It's actually a very, like, much more like a slight hill, and you don't feel the big plummet. However, you can feel invigorated with those cacaos. So I would drink those in the morning. If you want to sit with cacao later in the evening, I would sit with cacao from Bali. It's really magical and beautiful. The cacao very much reflects the people of that land. The Guatemalans and the Mexicans are very like fiery, spicy, like alive, and the Balinese are very all about balance. Like everything in the Balinese culture is about like tranquility and balance, and you can literally feel that in the cacao. It's wild. But yes, I would have the Bali cacao. Later in the evening, you can even drink it right before bed, and you can have lucid dreams or ideas that come to you in your dreams, which is so cool. So, in the process of preparing your cacao, it's very simple. It's just about intention. You just chop up your block of cacao, you bring some water to a boil, and then let it sit for a minute. You combine the chopped cacao and the water, and that's your base recipe there. From there, you can add in different spices to activate different things. Cinnamon is very fiery. Cardamom is very calming and nurturing. You have like vanilla and nutmeg and cloves and all sorts of things, cayenne pepper that you can work with. So you can have a lot of fun there. Make it absolutely delicious too. You can add in local honey. You can add in 100% maple syrup. The Mayan recipe uses coconut sugar. So you can kind of play there, be your own medicine woman and deciding what it is that you want to cultivate that day. And then, yeah, you can sit with your cacao, set your intentions with Mama Cacao. There's a Mayan goddess called Ish Cacao, like she has a spirit. So you can ask her for support if you're looking for support. You can go inward and just feel into what it is. If you're, let's say, you're brainstorming and you're going to be outlining your Q3 content, let's say it's feeling a little stagnant and you want to refresh it with some new creativity, you can just set that intention and be like, I want to connect with my creativity and connect with my ideal client, like where are they at, what do they need, how can I speak to them. And then you drink your cacao. And then I love to journal because lots of ideas start flowing. So some people journal, some people meditate, some people just kind of sit in silence in a beautiful space or out in nature and let their mind kind of flow and wander, and you'll be astounded at what surfaces. Or open up Canva and start playing.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I love how creative you can get in actually making it. Cause I think like with coffee, it's like, all right, put the beans in the grinder, grind it up, make the espresso, just put in some water or put in milk. It almost feels more exactly what it produces, this creativity.
Mhm.
It kind of starts at the creation of your cacao, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So when you are getting these ideas, I have this theory that just like everyone is weird. Everyone can get, very big in their vision. And I
Mhm.
find that the people who are accepting of that vision that comes through them in their
Mhm.
mind's eye, and they actually do it, even regardless of what's normal and what's weird, like they have so much success, especially in the workplay method, because everything is so creative, everything's so visual. So you get that feedback and you get that tangible result immediately because you're creating this vision, right?
Yeah.
But I find that sometimes when you're in that process, it could be when you're sitting with your cacao and you're getting this vision of like, all right, I want my next shoot to be in a Moroccan desert.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to be like on a camel and I want to be wearing this whole thing. And it's all around, I don't know, something that has nothing to do with the desert. Maybe something that like, maybe it's like you're launching a book and like this is what's coming to you. So it's
Mhm.
like a
Mhm.
stark difference or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, I've never really seen someone do that. How do you get over this almost like feeling of being too much in this world, or just allowing yourself to actually execute on the things that all of these beautiful rituals are creating for you?
Yeah, it's like we are taught that you need to be rational or you need to be responsible. And I heard this quote one time that said, don't rationalize your dream because you're rationing lies to yourself. And I just love that because you're right. If you're launching a book and then you get this vision that you're on a camel in the Moroccan desert, maybe for the cover, you're like, I can't do that. Does it make sense for me to pay to go to Morocco like for this experience? But when we follow those nudges, that is seriously when the magic happens. That's when everything just synchronously falls into place. Who knows? Maybe you meet like a publisher of Hay House or some huge publishing company while you're at the hotel in Morocco, and you just never knew how it would all fall into place. But that's when it falls into place, is when we follow that. And cacao does help support that because when we are creating and we're getting these ideas and we're pushing ourselves to be bigger versions of ourselves, it is scary. Like all this wounding comes up, all this limiting beliefs come up, these old stories of, I don't know, maybe our best friend in fifth grade, like told us like, you're not that cool, or I don't know, something that's stuck with us and is still in our subconscious mind can be putting boxes around our potential and success because we're allowing and we're like holding on to that story, even if we don't even know. And so I think the beauty of business is that it's such a strong mirror. It shows us where all of our limiting beliefs are around this new version that we're becoming and gives us the opportunity to face them, to do the inner child work, to look at these ideas and thoughts of like the idea that it's too much to go to Morocco and do a photo shoot for your book. It's that's like a limiting belief and a wounding that we have the opportunity to move through, to believe that like we aren't too much, that we are worthy of this trip, that we are successful enough and powerful enough and smart enough and everything enough to be allowed to do what we want. And we're allowed to play on this earth and have this amazing life experience and nothing is too much. But I feel like business is just such a really cool way to experience that because it shows us that over and over again. Every time we try to grow, it shows us a new part of ourselves that's not in alignment, and then we have the opportunity to move through it.
Oh, I love that so much. And when you're actually removing these blocks, from
Mhm.
someone, or someone's removing these blocks from themselves, like through themselves. How
Mhm.
does that equal revenue and income?
Mm.
So for more of our like people who are like identify as like numbers, logic, I think sometimes it's hard for those people to kind of correlate that work with revenue. Um,
Mhm.
I'm interested to know, like, how does it specifically equal that?
Yeah, so it is hard to see sometimes because I feel that it is a bigger pattern that unless we like zoom out and look at our life from, let's say, like the ego's perspective or the bird's eye view, it's hard to see how these intersect, because what we've been taught is that our life is all these segmented parts, right? We have our business, then we have our romance, and then we have our health, and it's like these are all just like parts of us that aren't connected. And the truth is that just we are one whole being. And so anything that we do to connect with ourselves deeper is going to ripple out in every single facet of our lives. So a really good example of this is my own story. I was working for a company in corporate America, and I had this belief around myself where my value was all around my output. And I had these bosses where I wanted to get a raise, and it was like pulling teeth trying to make more money. It was like they were convincing me that I wasn't worth this money. And then I did all this internal work around believing in myself and what I'm allowed to do and who I'm allowed to be, and what like allowing myself to create this marketing agency. And when I did, I literally tripled my income. I tripled my income in a matter of probably 4 or 5 months. It was insane. And it was to a level that I didn't even imagine was possible at the time, because you can only see as far as like your limiting beliefs allow you. Like imagine like it's a box that you put around yourself, and all you can see and understand is what's in this box. And when you take the lid off your box, there's another box that you need to move through, but the box is bigger. And so you're like, wow, I didn't know I was allowed to make like multiple six figures. I didn't know I was like capable of this. And then every time you do that, it gets bigger and bigger. And that's where the physical, tangible things start to show up in your world of like literally making more money, landing bigger clients, landing more prestigious clients, more successful clients, getting that promotion or getting on that big podcast or whatever like the tangible pieces are. That's when they start to show up. But there can be a delay too, which is what makes it even harder to correlate. Like when I do this healing work, I immediately made $15,000. Sometimes it happens that quickly, but sometimes there's a few months in between before it starts to show up. So I get it, like wanting to see, show me the evidence. I would say to that is to track it. I keep a lot of journals and booklets where I write down, okay, I was doing this work and this work on my self image or on my self love or on these limiting beliefs. And then I see what my income was that year, how many clients I had that year, like different metrics of success. And you start to see them track together for sure. But it just takes a little bit of time to record the data. This isn't like public information. This isn't something we see in the news or that people are like constantly talking about. So you kind of have to be your own data collector here and start to collect your own evidence to measure. But it's there. There's thousands and thousands of these stories that are luckily starting to surface through podcasts and things like this.
That's so interesting. I love the idea of tracking it, like being
Mhm.
able to even, you could even track this through the cacao ritual of like, all right, for these shoots, I didn't do this. For these shoots, I
Mhm.
did. And
Mhm.
then what did I create? What was the response from that creation after
Yeah.
using this practice? I could see how that could just be so easy to track, because it's
Yeah.
like if you're already going through this visual process with us, it's like you're already doing it. You might as well add this like little thing to it, because it's not, like you said, little nudges, little
Mhm.
baby steps
Mhm.
into more expansion. Why do you think it's worth it to do this strategy while creating quarterly visual campaigns? And I know that we've talked a little bit about it, we've danced around it, but just explicitly, like, why do you think this specifically can help members?
This is like twofold. Like it'll help you on a personal level and it'll help you on a business level. And like I was saying before, I don't believe that they're separate. I believe that they are 100% interconnected. And it is part of your journey as a human on this planet. Like you have these desires to be a business owner for a reason. You have these desires to be successful in whatever it is that you're marketing for a reason. And so it is kind of stepping into a deeper place of honoring these desires and taking it even a little bit more seriously, I guess, in the sense of like, this is my life's purpose. Like, I'm coming here to create. I want to create as much space for myself as possible to do that, to like the best level that I can. And I guess it comes from a place of curiosity too. Like, what can you create? Like, how amazing of content are you? Like, is your potential? And when you allow yourself to play with these things that maybe you've never played with before, when you allow yourself to do things you've never done before, you're allowing yourself the opportunity to reach new heights and new results that you've never reached before. It's a process of like honoring yourself, honoring your desires, and allowing yourself to grow and move and step into your creativity on a deeper level and then catapult your results, increase your income, increase your reach, increase your impact.
Yeah, it's like this is your competitive edge.
Mm-hmm.
All of these fronts, like relationship, personal, family, business,
Mm-hmm.
your person, you yourself. It's interesting when you have that, when you see that as one,
Mm-hmm.
how competitive you actually are with yourself, but then like the outside world is like, wow, that person's really leveling up each time. It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like you quantum leap, like you're able to create results that to the outside don't appear to be realistic or rational. And people are going to be like, how did you do that? And it's because you're tapped in. You're like so tapped into yourself. Yeah.
It's so true. Like I can't stress this enough. Like the best, most successful, externally successful members in this process do this, which is why I was so excited to have you on and talk through that because they're not thinking about anyone else. They're so grounded
Yeah.
in the creative process, which I love. I love, I love, I love. So I'm interested for myself, for members, like where do we get cacao? What like how do we order it? Like where do we get this stuff?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so I import cacao from Guatemala and from Bali, from two farms that I personally have been to and work with, because I think that the integrity behind the cacao is super, super important. My brand is called Cacao Wisdom, and I have a website, cacaowisdom.com. But in general, I would just say look for ceremonial grade cacao. Don't buy cacao powder because that's actually the cacao butter stripped out of the cacao. You want to buy the block. And then do your research and make sure that you trust the person who is bringing it to the United States because you want it to be brought from farms that it's a ceremonial process how they harvest it, so there's a lot of honor and intention behind it, that the people are paid well. These are coming from countries where that might not be the case, where it is truly organic.
Okay, amazing. So we'll link that all in the show notes for everyone so that they can go and purchase your cacao because obviously we're going to purchase from you. Like you're like you know all the things. Like I wouldn't trust anything else. And that was actually one of my questions because I've seen cacao like on the grocery store shelves. I've never seen it in a block. I was like I feel like this might be like the watered down version. I don't know, kind
Mhm,
of I don't know.
mhm.
So thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
If you could give workplay members one piece of advice for going through the method while implementing this cacao ritual,
Mhm.
what would it be?
I guess it would be kind of twofold. One would be taking it seriously enough to dedicate time and space for it. So, blocking out a period of time on your calendar for deep levels of creativity and creation, and knowing that you're going to give yourself, I don't know, let's say 2 hours or even 3 hours to sit with Mama Cacao and then do several maybe journaling exercises or go into Canva and play around with all these like visuals or graphics and things like this and just take it seriously and allow time and space for the ideas to come up, because this might be a really new process for you. So what might come up first might be, I don't know, some emotions around something that maybe you haven't moved through yet, or some fear around like not being a creative enough person, or whatever it is. And then that's where the second fold comes in, which is be gentle with yourself, because we know that in business we can create these like pressure pot cooker situations where we're like, I need to do this and I need to do it right now. And that is not a fruitful condition for creativity. When we are in more of a relaxed, calm state, is when we're able to drop into that like intuition, into that creative channel. So as much as you can, to be gentle with yourself, and to know that it is going to be a little bit of a process when you're first sitting with Cacao and you're first allowing yourself to dream. Maybe you haven't allowed yourself to dream to these like bigger levels yet. Like you said, maybe you had the idea of going to the Moroccan desert for a photo shoot and you immediately shot it down because you're like, that's silly, I'm not doing it. So you have these blocks in place right now, and that's okay. There's no judgment here. It's just witnessing, and then slowly starting to peel them away, and slowly starting to allow yourself to dream bigger, to listen to the nudges, to have the crazy ideas, and to entertain them.
I love that idea of entertaining. I really think that you do need time to refine the vision, refine the vision, refine the
Mm,
vision. So it's almost like the idea that you have on one day, over time, when you're in this practice, can be refined, and it can get better and bigger or smaller if
yeah.
it needs to get smaller. Having this consistency, I think, as well, where it's like, all right, instead of like just being like, all right, that's my cacao day and it's one day out of the month, you know, like, and then
Yeah.
the rest is coffee, easing it in like more balance, as you said in this
Yeah.
episode, can actually help refine the vision. Because what I've noticed with workplay members who have big visions is the idea comes through, but it comes through like months and months in advance. And then
Mhm.
as it gets closer to the photo shoot, it starts to get way more refined. And I'm like, wait, I thought the idea was this when I hear it. And then like they come back to me and they're like, no, it's this now. It gets more aligned the more I think you practice it.
That's so beautiful, because there's a lot of wisdom around relating like these concepts back to nature, and that's what we see in nature. You plant your seeds and it starts looking like this for a little while, and then it blooms and it's something completely unexpected, but it's beautiful. It's just not exactly what it looked like in the beginning, but there's a gestation period. There's a process of, like you said, cultivating it, pruning it.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. If you guys want to implement cacao in the creative process inside of the method, DM us cacao and we will send you the link to Gabrielle's cacao. Make sure you have it all in place for your creative process. If someone is not DMing us for the link, where can everyone find you, Gabrielle, and connect with you on the internet?
Yes, I have a Instagram account that's Expand with Gabrielle, and one also called cacao.wisdom.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. This was amazing.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.